Welcome back. Coming up, a very different side to Veterans campaigner Heston Russell. He's got big news on his efforts to become a federal MP. But first, so much more to wrestle with. Let's bring in the chief mud wrestlers at Sky News, commentator and businesswoman Prue McSween, New South Wales Senator Hollie Hughes, and former Labor Minister and legend Graham Richardson. One more time with feeling, please, gang.
You're on.
Good
Smith.
evening,
You've got boxing
Smithy.
gloves.
Yes. Our very last Sunday night together for 2021. Good to have you here. All right, so the new variant, Omicron, is officially here. We've already had a new set of quarantine rules brought in. Who knows what else will change as cases rise, if they do. Overnight, the UK's chief medico, Professor Chris Whitty, said his greatest worry was the public not consenting to another round of health orders. I've got to say, Prue, COVID fatigue will lead to the same lack of compliance here, won't it?
100%, Smithy. We're over it. We now have to accept that, well, what is it, 95% or so of us have accepted that if you get yourself immunised, you still could get it, but your chances of survival are a lot better. And the fact is, this is going to be around like the flu for years and years to come. We have to accommodate it. We've got to get these political premiers, that's all they're doing. They're using COVID as a chess game to keep Morrison out of their states prior to an election, and they're just using us as pawns in it. We're not prepared to put up with this anymore.
Yeah, in the last couple of days, Hollie, when I heard about this variant, it was like Groundhog Day. It is, isn't it?
Look, it is, and I think we've heard from the experts that they don't expect this variant to be any more dangerous or deadly than the current strains, and that the vaccines are effective against this strain. I think they're exactly right in what Prue said. Australians have had enough. They've lived for this for almost 2 years. In New South Wales, we're at almost 95% single dose.
Yep.
But even if you look across the country, even if you go from 5 years plus, 0 years plus, we are at an incredibly high rate. There is absolutely no need for any knee-jerk reactions. There's no need to enforce any further restrictions. Our businesses have done it tough enough. Our families have done it tough enough. And as, you know, Prue's made the point, and many of us have made the point over time, the flu's been with us for a really long time. We get a flu shot every year. If we need a booster to keep going with this, well, then so be it. But when you're at this level of vaccination, absolutely not do I think Australians will put up with it. Surprise, surprise, McGowan's out already closing the border.
Yep, exactly. He'll close them for 30 years, you watch. Now, Richo, the PM, is leading the world again in bringing the big tech giants into the real world and cracking down on social media trolls. He explained today that new legislation will be introduced to ensure that all social media users can be easily identified. Here he is.
The online world shouldn't be a wild west where bots and bigots and trolls and others can just anonymously going around and harm people and hurt people, harass them and bully them and sledge them. That's not Australia. That's not what can happen in the real world.
He's right, Richo, but will they hand over information on users if and when cases come before the courts? I don't think they'd like to do that.
Well, I'm not so sure. I mean, I think, as far as I'm concerned, my health information I don't regard as some national secret. If people find out about it, so be it. I'm much more interested in making sure that all of us take great steps not to infect anybody else. That's what the duty of a citizen is, to do your very best not to infect someone else. That's why the anti-vaxxers just drive me insane.
Prue, in terms of the troll legislation, how enforceable will this be, do you think?
I think it's going to be very tough, as you said, to identify them. These Facebook, Twitterati people are, you know, cowards, as we know. The thing that worries me is that the bullying that goes on that has led to some shocking deaths of young people and people like mates of mine, you know, who have taken their lives. People like me have tough skins. I just don't even read it. But there are so many that are being harassed, and it's a responsibility, as we've seen with Facebook and others, that, they're actually making money out of misery, and also things like live murders. For God's sake, they have to be treated as publishers and responsible for what they're allowing to go through their channels.
Yeah, I agree. I just hope it is enforceable. Hollie, the other thing is I heard that Sarah Hanson-Young wants a Senate inquiry into this because she smells a rat. Is she kidding?
Well, I don't think there's something Sarah Hanson-Young doesn't want to have an inquiry into. I think maybe she doesn't have enough to do with her time. I can assure you most of us sit on more than enough inquiries. We know how revolting Twitter and Facebook and some of these other platforms are, and the Voller finding in the High Court does make people liable for comments that are made under their posts. And there's some really serious situations that we see with trolls picking up pieces of information and then using that to smear others. Sometimes they're using their own name. A lot of the time they hide behind handles without their real information.
Yeah, mostly gutless.
Oh, look, I mean, let's face it, they're keyboard warriors. If anyone ever confronted
keyboard
these
cowards,
people,
Hollie. Keyboard cowards.
But I mean, it is foul. We see, I mean, the smears that I know a number of my female colleagues and I are subjected to, it's beyond regularly, it's daily. And it's really got to a point where you don't want your kids on your social media looking at even their parents, for those of us that have kids in public life. You don't want your kids looking at it because the stuff that's put on it is so vile and so defamatory. But it's just, and, as Prue made the point, the kids that are being bullied online, my kids are entering that phase now of, having phones and all those sorts of social media that I don't even know what they are. We're talking about Facebook and Twitter. Hate to tell you guys, that's showing up our age.
Yes.
Apparently there's a whole lot of other platforms out there that we don't even know what they are.
Yeah.
And these kids are able to use them to disseminate really bad smears and false information about their classmates and creating a real bullying culture.
As Jackie Lambie said last week, watch out for tic-tac. I don't even know what tic-tac is, but I think she means something else.
If you saw Jackie's TikTok from the other week, it just goes to prove sometimes there isn't enough to do in Canberra after Parliament rises.
All right, Richo, this is rather ironic. China wants membership to the CPTPP, which is a free trade partnership involving countries such as Japan, Canada, Australia. It was set up to actually offset China's trade rebellion. This is what Dan Tehan said about China's application today.
If they do want to accede to the CPTPP, which is the gold standard regional trade agreement in the Indo-Pacific, that they would have to be able to talk to us at the ministerial level, so the ministerial dialogue would have to get going. That's just a natural thing. Also, economic coercion has no place in an agreement like CPTPP.
Richo, could this be a way of bringing them into the tent and maybe unblocking the impasse between Australia and China, or am I too wishful in my thinking there?
I think you're a bit wishful because I'm never sure you even want them in the tent. You never know what they're going to do. They can make life very uncomfortable for everybody. And unfortunately, under the leadership that they've got now, they seem to have gotten more difficult, not less difficult, more aggro, not less aggro, and more dangerous. And so I'm very wary of the Chinese at the moment.
Yeah, and Richo, their application to be part of this partnership, it is only a political manoeuvre. They know they're not going to be accepted, right?
Of course it is. It's just one of those the throwaway lines that they have. They just want to cause as much mayhem as they can, and they'll throw their muck everywhere. And what we have to do is just be resolute and firm and hold up that one finger and keep it there.
Yeah. All right.
Good on you, Richo.
One last time with feeling, I said.
on the phone after you.
Meanwhile, Prue, an anti-US Army movie, The Battle of Lake Changjin, has become a blockbuster in China, the highest ever grossing film there, because it depicts the Americans during the Korean War being annihilated at that location by Chinese troops. Gee, good timing. Apparently Can you believe this?
I mean, the point is that, this is all part of the strategy of China. Look, if they were not a communist country, they'd be so smart. The streets ahead of everybody. They get They're ducks in a row. They've obviously plotted out a strategy to get all the, the rest of the community on side so that when they do go to war, everybody's going to be fired up. This is the foreplay. And they're so organised, and sadly we're just so blind and blinkered and naive when it comes to China 101 on war games.
Yeah. I noticed that the Chinese are eating frozen potatoes because apparently in the movie the Chinese during the snow were eating frozen potatoes to keep alive. Just mad stuff. Now, Richo, one last one for you. The photo of the barbecue yesterday between Albo and Chairman Dan.
Richo doesn't get this on his own.
No, we want one of these.
You have asked Albo today. You have asked Albo today about what he was talking about. Were they flammable words towards the Prime Minister? Do you know?
All I know is that Albo was staying mum. He would not say a word, which is a bit unusual. He's a good mate of mine, but he would not tell me one syllable of what was said.
It would be a plan, something to do with leading up to the federal election, surely.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It was what they're going to buy the man who has everything, Richo, for Christmas.
Yeah, of course.
Hey, look, I've just got two very quick observations. The first one being those bastions of the working class enjoying their filet mignon on the barbie. But if you zoom in, the barbecue's not even on.
Well, gotcha.
Right.
So there's one for you to go and have a look at.
Gotcha. Prue McSween, Hollie Hughes, and also Richo. Thank you so much for a great year on the program on Sunday night. Thank you very much for your dedication.
Thanks
Happy
for
Christmas,
having us.
guys.
Happy Christmas
Chris.
to you all. Fantastic.